Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to cover the Celestial Scourge, which is basically the most popular class right now. I saw most builds will run Transfusion, which is the trait which will teleport downed allies to yourself. It has a cooldown of like 60 seconds on your F4, so it's a bit long. It was nerfed, okay, it's still very great, but how often do you really use it in a Zerg? I'm talking about pugging and I mean organized environment, but not a guild or something like that. So maybe we can take a look at a different build, always running the Celestial Gears, and also while doing damage. Before starting with the build, I want to clarify that I don't think that my build is superior to the Transfusion build, but the Transfusion build really requires a lot of coordination in your squad. Like, you press your F4, you will transfuse people to you, and you start to rest by pressing F, but you are not enough. Also, your allies need to do that. You need to call the transfusion on TeamSpeak or Discord, whatever you are running, or any other voice program. So, in my opinion, if you are full pugging and you are not really familiar with War vs World, my build is really more rewarding because it provides more damage and more strips, even if you don't have the capabilities of racing, which can really turn the fight and is probably much better in organized fights. The build runs Spite, Soul Reaping and Scourge. On Spite we have the trait Spiteful Talisman, deals increased strike damage to foes with no boons, focus and axe skills recharge faster. So we take this trait because of the axe and focus skills, since we run both of them, both of those weapons, we need the cooldowns reduction, which is huge. Then we have Signets of Suffering, Signets steal health and remove boons from affected foes. So basically we run one signet, which is the Signet of the Locust, which the base version will remove one boon from enemies. With the trait we have another boon which is removed with this skill. So we have two boons removed with a single skill, and it's AoE around us, big AoE to 5 targets, and also it will grant us a lot of heal and some damage even on the enemy. So it's a very good skill together with this trait because also of the siphon health. And then we have Spiteful Spirit, cripple nearby foes and convert their boons into conditions. Gain resolution for each foe you strike, converts additional boons on foes below the health threshold. So basically whenever we press our F5 we will land a small attack on our enemies, and the F5 is this one, is basically how to enter Shroud in the Scourge. So we press the F5 and we will perform this small attack around us, which will remove, we will convert a boon into a condition on the enemies, and if the enemies which are hit by this skill are below 50% health threshold, they will get 2 boons corrupted instead of 1. So let's see how it works. You see, I press my F5, you see I dealt that 63 damage on this golem. This is the trait proccing, and if the golem had 1 boon on himself, I would remove 1 boon from him, and if he was below 50% health, I would remove 2 boons and transform them into conditions. So this is a really strong trait, even on the Scourge, which has a big cooldown on the F5, because this trait will increase the cooldown on the F5, but we have this other minor trait here on the Soul Reaper trait line, which will reduce the Shroud Skills, and so it will reduce also the F5. This other trait is really strong, close to death, but I think it should be used maybe on the Reaper, because the Reaper deals a lot of damage, power damage, and with this trait you can really upgrade your damage by a lot if you manage to hit enemies which are below 50% health. But also on the Reaper, this one is really strong because it works each time we enter the Shroud, and the Reaper Shroud has a 10 seconds cooldown compared to the 30 seconds cooldown. So if you just need the strips, maybe you should go for Spiteful Spirit even on the Reaper. But on the Scourge there is no debate, go for Spiteful Spirit. Scourge is bad at doing damage and power damage mostly. On Soul Reaping, the first choice of trait is all kinda bad. This one is not super bad, but you have like a condition removal once every 30 seconds, which is basically when you press your F5, you will have Cripple, Chill and Immobilize remove but I don't think you will wait for these conditions to be on you before pressing the F5, because the F5 needs to be used aggressively to do damage and to remove conditions and to pulse barriers, and also to remove boons from enemies, of course. Then I chose this trait, Shroud Skill 1 inflicts vulnerability, so as you might already know, F1 already applies torment, we press it, and our torment will also apply burning because of this trait, and also we will get a stack of vulnerability. So torment, burning and vulnerability just by pressing F1. So this really helps covering the conditions on your enemies, and so they will remove the useless conditions, and maybe they will get chill, cripple and immobilize, which are the movement impairing conditions, and if they don't remove them, hopefully your other DPS classes will kill the enemies. Then we have this very important minor trait, recharge reduced by 15% on each skill from F2 to F5. And then we have soul barbs here. The other two traits are kinda useless. Soul barbs increases your damage by 10% each time you enter or exit the shroud. So we press this, we enter shroud, and we get soul barbs for 10 seconds. And then at the end we get the refresh of this duration, maximum 10-second duration. Then we have an increase in our maximum life force, which is nice, and here we get death perception, gain increased critical strike chance, and also gain increased critical strike damage while in shroud. So this is another additional trait to do damage, power damage, even if this build is more conditions oriented, because torment is a really strong condition on the scourge. Even in the past, like years ago, when we played the full marauder, full berserker scourge, we used to deal top damage on our arc DPS most of the time, like with the staff 4, with torment, which is the condition, even if we run 0 conditions damage. And also we used to deal damage with the skill tree from the scepter, from the axe, and also from the well of suffering. But torment, we had 0 condition damage, and we used to be top damage with torment, like the top 3 skills. So if you have some condition damage in your build, you will really benefit from it. On the Scourge, we can run Fell Beacon. Burning you inflict deals more damage, 10%, and also we gain some expertise based on our condition damage. We have a decent amount of condition damage on ourselves because we run Celestial, so getting some additional expertise is not that bad. But also this trait is really strong. Granting an ally a barrier removes conditions, inflicting them, and grants might. So this is kinda good, especially on our F5, because our F5 will pulse barriers, so each pulse is a conditions removal and also some barrier applied on your allies. Sorry, some might, not barrier. So this trait I think is more supportish. In this build I try to go more aggressive because I tend to be more egoistic. If I am in a pug zerg, in a pug fight, I don't expect proper support, like, so I can go for this trait and to do more damage and remove more boons from enemies. Sorry. If you choose to pick this trait, Abrasive Grit, on the last trait you should probably go for Descent Empowerment instead of Demonic Lore, but I will get to it in a second. Here we get some concentration and expertise each time we have an active shade, so we will have a shade all the time. Here we have Sandstorm Shroud, we press the F5 and instead of entering the shroud and pulsing damage around us, we will have this thing which will pulse barrier around us, and at the end it will remove 2 boons from enemies and convert them into conditions, and also you will pulse a lot of barrier on you and on your allies, and it synergizes kinda properly with the Abrasive Grit, which is conditions removal each time we apply barrier, and also some might, but this is especially strong for the aspect of the boon strip. And then we have Demonic Lore, which I run because Torment we inflict deals increased damage by 33%, which is like a lot, really a lot, and causes your foes to burn. So whenever we apply some torments on our enemies, and we apply torment each time we press F2, F3, sorry, I don't have life force, F3, F4, and then the F5 at the end, which apply a lot of torment, so we get burning. So it's basically an additional condition, and the burning is the strongest damaging condition, so if the enemies don't remove it kinda soon, you will deal a lot of damage with it. It will usually be together with Torment on your top 2 on arc DPS as the damage skill. So this is a really strong trait in my opinion if you have some conditions damage, which we do. Otherwise, if you want to go more supportish, you could go for this one. Basically, you will apply barrier with your RF1, but you see it's like 600 barrier. But the barrier is good also for the might and for the condi removal if you run abrasive grit. So it's up to you. In my opinion, this trait is kinda overrated. It used to be much stronger. You could give like 3k barrier I think before the nerfs. And also it used to give alacrity each time we applied barrier on allies. Now it just gives vigor, which we don't really need. Every class can apply a lot of vigor. In my opinion, if you don't run demonic lore, you lose a lot of your damage because you lose burning and your torment, which will just deal a lot of less damage. On the gears, everything is celestial. We run superior rune of the Tempest, which is basically the rune for the celestial classes because it offers all stats and conditions duration. It's kinda strong. Then we have Axe and Focus. Axe, Superior Sigil of Nullification to remove additional boons. And then we have on the Focus, Superior Sigil of Torment. We will apply 2 stacks of Torment each time we critically hit with an internal cooldown of 5 seconds. And this Torment will deal a lot of damage because of this trait, 33% damage increase, and also will provide burning, so we can really spam Torment together with burning even more with this sigil. And then on the Greatsword, I went for the Superior Sigil of Absorption and the Torment again. I chose Absorption on the Greatsword because we have the skill 4, which is a pulsing boon strip. So basically we can remove stability from enemies and turn it into a fear. Fear is a CC. If we CC an enemy, we can interrupt him, and if we interrupt him, we will remove 3 additional boons from that enemy and give them to us. Basically, we will steal 3 boons, as mentioned in the tooltip of the Superior Sigil of Absorption. I know these weapons kinda look like power weapons, like Axe and Focus are power, and even the Greatsword, but the Greatsword has the skill 4 and the skill 5, which are huge, even if you have 0 power. And then we have the Axe and the Focus. The Axe skill 3 is one of the best skills in War vs Sword. You just press it and you deal damage around you and remove 1 boon from enemies. And also the secondary explosions are oftentimes underrated. And also there is no many other choices on the Scourge for the main hand. I saw some people running the Scepter and they run the Curses straight line, which is this one, and your skill 3 on the Scepter become AoE, but it has like 18 seconds cooldown if you take that trait, which is like double of this one, and you need to aim it to the enemies. This one just press and you can keep walking, do what you want. And the skill 5 on the Focus is the reason why we run the Focus. We can remove up to 3 boons to an enemies and apply like 8 seconds of chill to him, and also it will deal a lot of damage because if you remove 3 boons, which is basically the standard in War vs Sword, everyone has like 11 boons on himself. You press it, you remove 3 boons. The more boons you remove, the more damage you do. So, in my opinion, this is the right choice of weapons. The Scepter is just not that good, in my opinion. It was nerfed too hard. It was previously really strong. Then we have everything is celestial on the other trinkets. And then the relic, I run the Relic of Cerus. Whenever we press our elite skill, we will summon this eye, which will spin and deal damage to enemies and convert boons into conditions. On them, maximum like 5 hits, I think. I read it on the wiki, like 7-8 hits. And so I know the cooldown is kinda big, like the internal cooldown of the relic is just 30 seconds, but our elite skill is 72. Hopefully we will get a lot of alacrity from our renegade, so we can reduce this cooldown together with every other cooldown. Every cooldown is important. If you are not really sure about the Relic of Cerus, I saw some people running some new stuff, which I don't remember the name, sorry, but it was like the vulnerability whenever we applied. It's this one, the Sorcerer, where we inflict cripple, chill or immobilize, we also inflict vulnerability. It's for the conditions cover, but I don't think it's worth it because we don't really, I mean, we have a lot of cripple on the skill 3. We can also apply some sigil which applies cripple, but in my opinion just go for Relic of Cerus. let's take a look at the skill from F1 to F5. We have 3 shades, 3 maximum stacks of shades. Each shade will provide torment. Once you cast it on the ground, it will basically do damage and apply torment on the shade location and around yourself. Every skill from F1 to F5 will pulse on the shade and around yourself. You see, this explosion would be hitting the enemies. Let me show you better here. You see, F1, F3, I will hit that guy from the shade and that guy from around myself. Each skill has 2 targets, like 2 per shades, and you cannot hit the same target with the same skill. So we have the F1, and then we have the F2, which will remove a condition from allies and turn it into a wound. 2 conditions, sorry, to convert them into 2 wounds. The F3 is your big instant barrier, you press it, big barrier. And then we have the F4, which is the AoE fear, which is really strong, especially if you press it properly, like after you corrupt the boons. And this is paired with the transfusion trait, which I don't run in this build, but it's really strong. You should run it if you have organized environment. And then we have the F5, we press it, we pulse barrier around us, and at the end we have this big explosion, which deals a lot of damage, a lot of barrier, a lot of protection. 2 conditions, 2 boons are stripped from enemies and converted into conditions, and also we will apply 6 stacks of torment at the end, which is huge. So ideally in a proper fight we should be having like shades all over the place, and then we should be starting pressing our skills so we can maximize the targets hit by our shades. We press F3, you see 2 targets hit per shade, so 2, 4, 6 and 8, because also 2 targets around us. And then the same goes for especially the skill F5. You see also the shades will pulse around them and explode and deal damage and remove wounds and so on. So ideally you should be casting your F5 when you have 3 shades on the ground, but in a real fight you cannot really control it. So just do your best to hit the maximum targets you can. On the utility skills, we run Sand Flare because it applies a lot of barrier on ourselves and on our allies, and also it provides some healing on ourselves. And if we are in a melee range, we will remove a boon from enemies and turn it into torment, as you can see. So it's a really strong AoE barrier and boon strip. Then we have the Signet of the Locust, which I already covered. We press it, we remove 2 boons per target and also steal a lot of health and also deal a decent amount of damage. Then we have the Trail of Anguish. It's a break stun, the only stun break we have in the build, and also it will apply 1 stack of stability and swiftness on ourselves, and we will create this trail behind us, which will inflict on the enemies burning. And also if we remove a boon from the enemies, like we can hit up to 10 enemies and remove 1 boon from them, that boon will be converted into torment, and having torment on the enemies will also provide burning into them because we have this trait. So each torment source should be seen as also a burning source, because we have these many torment sources, which is a lot. And even if the tooltip is not really clear, you see the F1 applies torment. This goes for every shade skill. So also the F2, you don't read the torment here, but if you press it, you will apply it, and so we have the burning. Then F3, torment and burning. So this is a lot of burning spam and torment spam. Then we have the Well of Corruption, which is your most important skill. Is a boon strip, AoE, big range, 5 pulses of boon strip, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and all 6 actually, sorry, counting the first one. And also it's unblockable, so basically you can remove up to 30 boons from enemies. It's like huge, and the unblockable component is just so good because everyone can spam a lot of Aegis in War vs World, so this one will bypass that Aegis. And then we have as elite skill Ghastly Breach, which is really similar to the Well of Corruption, but it's not unblockable and it will not boon strip the enemies. It will convert that boon into torment and the torment will also apply burning, of course, and also it will provide might on allies and slow on the enemies, and you cannot really choose the location of this skill, it's just around you, but it's so strong. You see how much it provides on the enemies, burning, torment, a lot of it, and removing boons and converting into torment. So the only downside of this skill is that it's not unblockable, but it would be too strong. Like, it's okay, like this, it's already really strong. On the axe skills, we have the skill 2, which is a lot of damage. It's channeled a bit long, but I mean, it deals a decent amount of damage, is good paired together with the Spinal Shivers. You can Spinal Shiver your enemy, you deal a lot of damage while removing 3 boons, and then you knock out and finish the enemy by doing this. You can really even do this while moving, so you are not locked in place, you can move around, you are chasing your enemy, press your skill 2 and do damage. The skill 3 from the axe is an Holy Fist, which I already covered. It's really strong AoE, boon strip, and also damage dealer, and it has a really low cooldown compared to many other skills which are worse and have more cooldown. So this one should be used like twice in a weapon swap. Let's say we are in combat, we are using Greatsword, we swap, immediately skill 3, which has like the same cooldown as the weapon swap. Then we should be on this weapon set and wait for the skill 3 to come up again, and then before swapping to the Greatsword again, we should be using the skill 3 again, and so the Greatsword is ready again. On the Greatsword we have the skill 2, which is a huge damage dealer, but it's really slow and it's AoE. And then the skill 3 is good, it's a damage dealer, it's a bit slow, but it's used mainly for the life force generation. As you can see, it can generate a lot of life force. The skill 4 will pulse some boon strip, is like a small well of corruption, a slower well of corruption, but it's not unblockable and you cannot choose the location. It's just expanding around yourself, like you drop it on the ground, you can move around, and that pull will just be on the ground on the initial location, it will not follow you. And then we have the skill 5, which is a huge pull. You press it and you will pull all enemies to yourself if they have no stability, and it's huge. It can really pull enemies from above the walls. For example, let's say there is an annoying soul beast on the wall, like there, you see, even if I'm here, I can pull him to me, because it just goes beyond the range and beyond every object, like the walls, and the terrain is not like the other pulls, which are kinda bad. Like, I mean, they are good, but this one is just overpowered. You see, I can do this. It is really interesting to comment and to explain how the Scourge should be used and how it works. So it's made up by 2 phases basically, because we are kinda resetting the fight, like middle fight, and so we start again with fresh cooldowns. So let's see it. So we walk up to the enemies. I didn't slow this clip because I think I can explain already. Scourge doesn't have that many skills like other classes. So we are about to clash here. I try to pull someone. I think I failed, but still I removed some stacks of ages or stability. And then here I should cast my skill 4 and the F5 also. The F5 I managed to land it. It's really important because the enemies are about to clash and the F5 takes a while to explode. So it's decent to have and to deal damage because the enemies are running to us, and by the time they come to us, the F5 will explode. Then I should be using the skill 4 because it's slowly expanding to the enemies, so I should have created it, but it's okay. I am keeping the first small pulls for when they are on us. Then I press, you see, every skill from F5 to F2 because basically every shade will pull those skills, and also around myself. And then the enemies are now on us, a bit on the side. I cast my Well of Corruption on them, and also my Ghastly Breach, because the Ghastly Breach has a big radius, so I will hit all of them. So this is a big boon strip together. And then you see I used my Trail of Anguish. As soon as I started moving, even if I am going backwards, I will leave the trail on the ground, and if the enemy move on that trail, they will get Torment, Burning, Boon Removal. So it's good to use like that, like always use the Trail of Anguish if you are sure your enemies are going over it, or if you are going over the enemies. It can be used really aggressively or passively. The enemies are going to you, okay, they need to walk on that trail for sure. You are rushing onto the enemies, okay, you are just double dodging into the enemies and you are above them and you drop your trail on the ground and you will surely land it on the enemies. And then here basically I'm using every skill I have, and I use my Signet of the Locust, which is 2 additional boon strip AoE, boon removal, sorry, not boon strips. You see how many boon I could remove here. And then I cast my skill 4 a bit closer to the wall. And then skill 6 for additional barrier. Maybe I should have used it. Oh, okay, I cancelled it. Here I can use my skill 3, which is AoE, but I need to go up on the level, like I am on a different level. Here I'm below, my skill 3 will not hit if I am below, I need to be on the same level of the enemy. Okay, here is safe to use, skill 3, and then skill 6, which is my barrier, AoE barrier and also boon removal, and converting the boon into torment, and then also applying burning because of the trait. Here I try to get some life force with the skill 4. We jump on the enemies. I am a bit slow. Skill 3 immediately. At this point my skill 4 should be almost ready again on the Greatsword, but I am waiting. Okay, skill 5, I managed to pull some guy. He ran back, he didn't die. At this point I have almost every cooldown ready again. Here I should be casting my F1s above the stairs, so the enemies will hit every skill I press from the F2 to the F5, because I will push them around me and around the shades. Previously I used them like I didn't use many shades, like 0 shades, so I kind of wasted the skill from F2 to F5, like I just hit 2 targets, but this one I hopefully do better. Okay, you see I managed to cast my shades, immediately F5, and then immediately Well of Corruption and also the other boon strip, which is the Signet of the Locust. Then the enemies are coming to me, I start basically mashing the keyboard, F4, F3, probably I will go for the F2 and another F1 again, and I need to go for the skill 4, which is the pulsing boon strip here, because the enemies are moving to me. You see, first pulse, okay, second pulse, okay, third pulse, okay, fourth pulse, okay. I maximized basically all the duration of the skill 4. Let's get back a bit. Okay, I used my heal skill again for barrier to survive the clash on me and on my allies, and also to remove the boon from enemies. Then I immediately swap to axe, and the first skill you should be using is the skill 3, which is the most important skill, and also it has the same cooldown basically of your weapon swap. So now we should wait out for the skill 3 to come up again before swapping weapons. It's like 1 second delay. Actually we have alacrity, so maybe the skill 3 comes up before the weapon swap. I used my skill 5 on the focus, then skill 2 on the axe. I have no skills ready. I use my Signet of the Locust. It has a kinda slow cast, so be sure to cast it because before casting any other skills, because otherwise you will cancel the cast. Let's see what happens here. I used my F2 as soon as it goes up. And then skill 3 from the axe. At this point my skill 4 on the Greatsword should be almost up. Okay, no, like 10 seconds more. Maybe I should have stayed on the axe for another session. Okay, we can see it again. Because here I will not slow it and I will not stop. You see, I use my every boon strip I have so many conditions on me. Then I go above, skill 3. You see, the damage is kinda decent. There is no other scourge on the top 10. There is a reaper, 2 reapers actually, then the rest is holosmiths. Okay, they are just too strong to deal damage. But most importantly, it counts how many strips I did compared to other scourges, but not because I'm better, but because maybe other scourges are running transfusion, but I don't think, like, we have 10 scourges, I don't think I saw the need of 10 transfusion in this fight, and even if we needed those 10 transfusion, I don't think all the scourges would press it properly and use it properly. So in my opinion, this build is a good alternative, and you will provide decent damage and a lot of boon strip. Most of the time you will be the top boon strip class. You see how much boon strip I can provide, like I am doing double compared to the other scourges and reaper. Okay, let's take a quick recap on how the scourge works and what your top priority skills are. Okay, these guys are the enemy Zerg. we are in a ranged situation, we can try to pull them with the skill 5. Then we can start casting our shades, so our skill from F2 to F5 will properly do damage around myself and around my shades. You see F2, for example. Then if we choose to go onto the enemies, we can double dodge onto them and they will do the same most of the time, or they are just going to us and we are going defensively. Both cases we should be using Trail of Anguish, because we can double dodge on the enemy and we leave the trail on the ground and we deal damage and boon rip on them and convert the boon into a torment, and so we also provide burning thanks to the trait. And even if they come to us, we can backpedal or turn the camera and go back and press Trail of Anguish, so they walk over the trail and they get the boon rip. And then once we are on the enemies, or if the enemies are coming like in 3 seconds, 3, 2, before the 1, I can cast my Nightfall on my location, on my position, so the enemies are walking over it and they are eating every hit, every pulse, and they are getting their boon stripped. Then another priority skill is the Ghastly Breach. It's mostly used once you are sure the fight is stalling on that same position. Let's say you just double dodge into the enemies and you see the enemies are not moving out, or let's say the enemies as double dodged onto you, they are on you. Every scourge immediately should be Ghastly Breach. And also with the Relic of Cerus is additional boon strip, and it's huge because the Ghastly Breach is already a good boon strip, so we have this one. Then the skill 3, for example from the axe, is kinda similar in radius to the Signet of the Locust, and it has also the same function, damage deal and boon strip. So you can press them when you have enemies around you. You don't need to necessarily cast it as the Ghastly Breach, because this one has bigger radius. You see this one is 300 radius, this one is 600, and the Signet is 600 too. So you have enemies there. I know it's 5 targets, but if the 5 targets are in radius, they don't need to be like scattered around you. They can also be like 5 to the north. You press this and you hit 5 of them, and the same goes for the Signet. And then we have the Well of Corruption, which is the same basically together with the Ghastly Breach. Most of the time you cast it together with the Ghastly Breach to maximize the impact you have in the melee situation. The enemies are going to you, you cast the Breach, the Trail of Anguish, the F5, the Well of Corruption, so you can remove like 3 or 4 boons per second, I think, during the combat or something like that. But this one is also ranged. You can decide where to cast it. The enemies are moving away or moving around, they are not engaging yet. If the commander calls for wells, you press it, so you can boon strip the enemies, and it's unblockable and it's so strong. The F5 should be used as the same of the skill 4 from the Greatsword, basically, because we have these shades, the enemies are coming to me. Immediately I cast my F5 and skill 4, so the enemies now are on me. They get hit by every skill from the F5, every shades will hit, and also every pulse from the skill 4. So this was basically the most important skills. Use every skill, but this one I just listed to you and showed you how to play are the most important. The enemies are coming on you, Trail of Anguish, Well of Corruption and Ghastly Breach, and the F5 also, and the skill 4 on the Nightfall. And then once you cast these slow cast skills, like for example the skill 4 on the Greatsword should be cast first because it's really slow. It's 1 pulse every 2 seconds, so also the F5, you see how slow it is. Instead the skill Signet of the Locust and the skill 3 from the axe are kind of fast and around you, big radius, so they can be used in a secondary moment. Okay guys, this was all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my new take on the Scourge. I know I will get like some downvotes, I will get dislikes because I don't run Transfusion, but let me clarify again, I think Transfusion is really strong and OP. It can really turn the fights, but in my opinion you don't need 20 scourges in a squad which runs transfusion, because it's basically wasting a trait line and some damage dealing and some wound ripping, which is huge and so important in War vs World Zerg fights. Let me know in the comments your thoughts, if you play something similar, if you play still the old power scourge, but I wouldn't recommend it. Please leave a like and a subscribe to show me your appreciation and support, and see you on to the next video. Thank you for watching again, and have a great night. Bye bye.